The grand chamber of the Zyrathian Empress was unlike any hall a human had ever seen. Towering ceilings, carved from luminescent crystal that shimmered with the pulse of the alien city, stretched into shadowed heights. The walls themselves seemed alive, swirling with iridescent patterns that shifted as though reflecting the thoughts of those who entered. The air carried a faint hum, a resonance that made every nerve in the body tingle. Captain Elias Draven stepped cautiously over the polished floor, his human senses assaulted by the grandeur. He had crossed the void in a stolen ship, dodging patrols, avoiding sensors, and enduring the vacuum of space itself, all for a single reason: to confront the Zyrathian Empress, whose armies had decimated colonies across the Outer Rim. Yet as he reached the heart of the chamber, where the Empress herself awaited, the air seemed to thicken. The alien ruler emerged from the shadows, her form tall and regal, with skin like molten silver and eyes that glowed faintly with violet fire. Her crown floated inches above her head, composed of countless crystalline shards that sang with a harmonious vibration. And then she froze. Elias noticed it before she even spoke, the slightest hesitation, a tremor in her posture, a fleeting flicker in her eyes. It was as if she had recognized someone from a memory buried deep within her mind. I did not expect a human here, she said, her voice both melodic and sharp, resonating in the chamber like a tuning fork. Elias swallowed, tightening his grip on the small energy weapon at his side. Though he had no intention of using it, he needed her to see him, not fear him. I came because enough of your people have fallen, he said, his voice steady. I've come to end this. The Empress's gaze softened, almost imperceptibly. The tremor in her body persisted, subtle, but impossible to ignore. End this, she repeated. Or, do you mean punish us for sins we did not intend? Elias raised an eyebrow. Intent doesn't change outcome. You burned our colonies. You left countless humans stranded in the void to die. For a moment, she looked away, as if wrestling with a memory long suppressed. Then she turned back, her voice quieter, almost wistful. I remember you. The words hit him like a shockwave. Me, he asked cautiously. Yes, she whispered. Not as a human, not as a captain. As someone I once knew. Her eyes narrowed, searching, almost pleading. Centuries ago, before the schism between our species, before the wars, I knew you. Or, rather, I knew someone like you. Elias's mind raced. How could this be possible? Humans and Zyrathians had only recently begun contact, less than a century ago. Yet the way she spoke, trembling slightly, as if recalling a long-lost bond, suggested something far beyond historical records. I don't understand, he said cautiously. We've never met before. No, not you, human, she admitted, her voice catching in a way that suggested centuries of grief. But your likeness, your determination, your courage, it is the same. I remember a protector, a friend who chose mercy over vengeance, even when it meant defying my counsel. A human who walked into the heart of Zyrathian power, unarmed in spirit, and changed the course of history. Elias's fingers itched to touch the memory she was dredging up, but it was intangible. I'm not that man, he said firmly. I'm Elias Draven, a captain of the Terran fleet. I don't know your past. Her eyes softened further, a shimmer of tears. Those Zyrathians did not cry in the human sense, filling the corners. And yet, you carry the same soul. He felt a weight in the chamber, a sense that the fate of two species hung in balance. She had 1,000 soldiers outside these walls, and he had a single ship, outnumbered and surrounded. But the recognition in her eyes told him that this was not just a meeting of war, it was a confrontation of destiny. "Why do you tremble?" he asked, stepping closer, though keeping his distance respectful. "You're the Empress. You're supposed to be untouchable." Her hands floated to her chest, fingers brushing the crystalline shards of her crown. "Because you remind me that we could have been different. That once the humans and the Zyrathians were not enemies. You remind me that mercy is not weakness." Elias's mind flashed back to the stories his grandmother used to tell him about the early days of contact with alien civilizations, legends of humans who walked into alien courts and survived, simply by appealing to shared morality. "And what happens now?" he asked. "Do we go back to being enemies?" She shook her head slowly, her eyes searching his. "No. Not if you refuse it. The choice is yours. I can call my fleets to annihilate your colonies, and you would have no choice but to surrender or die. Or you can remind me, as you remind me now, that there is another way." Elias took a deep breath. Years of loss, of seeing entire colonies wiped out by alien aggression, surged through him. But looking at her, seeing the faint tremor in her composure, sensing the buried recognition, he felt the stirrings of hope. "Then I choose the other way," he said firmly. "I choose negotiation. I choose peace. But it will not be on your terms. It will be on ours as equals." The Empress studied him, the room vibrating faintly with her uncertainty. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Very well," she said, almost to herself. "Then we shall see if the human spirit is truly capable of what I once believed it was." She raised her hand, and the walls shifted, revealing a holographic map of the sector. Star systems burned, colonies in ruin, fleets in formation. "This is the state of our war," she said. "Decide what you will save." Elias studied it, noting the devastation. "We'll need a ceasefire first," he said. "Then we can discuss reparations, evacuation, rebuilding. You'll need to convince your generals, and I'll need to convince my council. But if we do this, it will be the first time in history a human and a Zyrathian have truly collaborated to end a war." A faint smile flickered on her lips, almost imperceptible, but full of relief. "Collaboration," she repeated. "I thought I had forgotten what that word meant." Days passed in intense negotiations. Elias remained on the Empress's warship, an unprecedented act of trust, while emissaries from both sides communicated in a careful dance of diplomacy. Each conversation peeled back the layers of hostility, revealing the shared values buried beneath centuries of conflict: curiosity, respect for life, the desire for knowledge. And during those days, Elias began to see the tremor in her composure fade, replaced by something stronger, determination tempered by wisdom, a ruler who remembered mercy. She no longer viewed him as a threat, but as a bridge. And he, in turn, began to understand the weight of her burden, the centuries of leadership, the battles fought not just in space, but in the hearts of her people. One evening, as the twin moons of Zyrathia cast silver light through the crystal chamber, she approached him quietly. "I have seen many humans in my lifetime," she said softly, "but you remind me of the one I lost long ago." Elias regarded her steadily. "I'm not him," he said again, "but I am willing to be the one you remember." For a moment, she said nothing, only looking at him with an intensity that made his heart pound. Then she reached out, touching the back of his hand with her cool, metallic fingers. "Perhaps," she said, "that is enough." The ceasefire was signed. Both fleets retreated to designated neutral zones, and communication lines opened for the first time in decades. The Empress made public declarations of cooperation, promising protection for human settlements, while Elias facilitated the coordination of aid, evacuation, and reconstruction. Through it all, their bond deepened, not as lovers, not yet, but as allies who had glimpsed the possibility of a different future. Every time Elias entered her chamber, she remembered him. Not the man he was, not the human he had always been, but the spark of courage, the choice of mercy, the unshakable resolve that had once changed her heart. Months later, when the last human colony was stabilized and the Zyrathian forces had withdrawn, Elias prepared to leave. The Empress met him at the docking bay, her crown shimmering softly in the ambient light. "Will you return?" she asked, her voice unusually gentle for a ruler accustomed to command. Elias smiled. "If you'll let me," he replied. Her violet eyes gleamed, almost like the first sign of dawn after a long night. "Then return," she said. "But remember, human, it is not just you who carries history in your hands. It is both of us. Together, perhaps we can rewrite it." As his ship ascended into the stars, Elias looked back at the crystal spires of the Zyrathian capital. He knew the road ahead would be difficult, filled with skepticism, bureaucracy, and old grudges. But he also knew that one human could make a difference, and that sometimes even an alien empress could tremble at the sight of what hope might bring. In the end, the memory of that tremor remained in both their hearts, a recognition that mercy could overcome war, that courage could reshape destiny, and that a single human could remind an entire civilization of what it had almost forgotten. And somewhere in the infinite cosmos, amidst the lingering echoes of battle and the whispers of ancient grudges, two souls, one human, one alien, stood poised to write a new chapter in the story of their worlds. As his ship ascended into the stars, Elias looked back at the crystal spires of the Zyrathian capital. He knew the road ahead would be difficult. Skepticism, political resistance, and the ghosts of past wars would test them both. Yet he carried a certainty that humans had always held, the courage to act, even when the odds were insurmountable. The Empress remained at the docking bay, her crown glinting softly in the pale light of the twin moons. She had seen centuries of war, witnessed countless lives extinguished, and yet in that moment, she allowed herself to hope. Not because of her power, but because of him. "Will you return?" she asked, her voice carrying the rare warmth of vulnerability. "I will," Elias replied firmly. "And I'll bring more than words. I'll bring proof that we can build a future together." Her violet eyes shimmered with a mixture of awe and recognition, a reminder of the one she had lost long ago, and yet a recognition of who he was now. "Then return," she said softly. "And remember, human, the tremor I felt, it was not fear. It was remembrance. Remembrance of what courage, mercy, and resolve can accomplish. Remember that, and perhaps, together, we can reshape the fate of our worlds." As he disappeared into the void, a quiet resolve settled over both of them. One human had reminded an entire civilization that mercy was strength, that courage could alter destiny, and that even the most powerful empress could tremble, not in fear, but in recognition of a better path. In the infinite expanse of the galaxy, amidst the ruins of war and the first whispers of peace, two souls, human and alien, stood at the threshold of a new era. And in that trembling, recognition, and hope, a bond was forged that would echo across the stars for generations to come.